Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Game week is here. It's Hail Varsity Radio presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Let's roll the sleeves up. Get ready for Nebraska, Ohio State. Smile. You made it. I know it isn't Saturday yet, but guess what? It was good to see and hear from Nebraska's captains. It was wonderful to hear from Scott Frost. And we can get into it. Dial us up at 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Those are the numbers. You can also join us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, Chris Schmidt, at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel, and can email Chris at HailVarsity.com. I know it's just Monday, but got a week to maybe waffle, got a week to double down. You have a week to let doubt linger. But I've seen the spread jump from last Wednesday to now. And I'll tell you what, man, I'm optimistic that this thing, I mean, it's going to go one of two ways. It's going to be a beatdown or it's going to be competitive, right? And I don't see much gray area. And out of the gates here, does this game feel like, and we'll hear from coach and players here in a moment, but is just cracked out as 2020 has been? I mean, what are you feeling right now going into this thing? Grateful, right? You're absolutely grateful that there's going to be football. This has felt so exhausting and long, just as a football fan waiting for this. You've seen bumps in the road. You've seen roadblocks. You've seen it in the NFL. You've seen it in the SEC. You've seen it around different parts of college football. Here's what we know. Anything and about everything has happened since things kicked off in Power 5 leagues, since things have kicked off with the NFL. This is a year of uncertainty, and that's okay. So you get football as we talk Monday, and Elijah's like, "Dude, you've been drinking already." No, I'm a little medicated, but it's not anything negative. And is this thing going to be more like 2018 or 2019? Because you have two comparison looks, don't you, at Ohio State? And are you getting an Ohio State team that's going to be overconfident? They're just going to kind of walk out there and it's just Nebraska? Or are they going to be on edge and ready for blood because they're like a lot of teams who fought and wanted to play football where, all right, Clemson put up 70-something on poor Georgia Tech. Bama kissed their left and right bicep in the second half against Georgia. I mean, that's part of this too. Is this a situation where Ohio State's just that much more talented? They're going to be that much more in tune out of the gate. This is going to be freaking weird. No fans, no band, no tailgating, a few friends and family in the shoe, and you've got the world descending. I loved watching NFL yesterday where about every other commercial was big noon kickoff promos, and I'm seeing Adrian, and I'm seeing Ohio State, and I'm seeing Fields. So as we talk Monday, I'm feeling all right about Nebraska. Different year, different setup, different squads, but a lot of the same players and cast for Nebraska, and you've got some main players and cast for Ohio State. So as we look at Monday, we do have some things that are certain, and that is Scott Frost naming his starting quarterback. But it was interesting how it's been worded, not just from Adrian, which we'll hear in a little bit, but also Scott Frost wanting to make it abundantly clear that, listen, Adrian's the guy, but I have two number one guys, which is good to hear. I don't know that there was that much separation other than experience. And you saw Adrian play a really, really good game as a true freshman against Ohio State. Can that be replicated, or is it going to be just another horror show with him running for his life and with Ohio State being that much better defensively to take advantage and force turnovers and just do what they did to Nebraska and most of the college football world last year? So here is Scott Frost. The question out of the gate with him. Where's your quarterback situation at? Who's the guy?
We're not going to announce much from depth chart. I just think that's what's best for our team. Adrian's going to be our quarterback. I feel like I got two guys that are playing at a really high level. I've seen a lot of improvement out of Adrian this year, seen a lot of improvement out of Luke this year. Both those guys are capable of moving our offense and doing a great job.
Okay, so you've got the job, Adrian. You won the job, Adrian. You're voted captain. And it's your job to keep the job and also roll with the punches because, Elijah, it sounds to me like this thing was tight. This thing was a slim race. And what won out was experience. And I think you have to do that. I think you got to go with the guy that's been in that rodeo before, although it's a different rodeo. It's a fanless rodeo on the road. But Adrian's seen Ohio State twice. And can you get more of a 2018 performance in Columbus? And it's going to come down to the other 10, right, on offense and the other 11 defensively. Where are you at as a program right now against a team that is hungry to prove a point, and they have a massive chip on their shoulder from how things finished against Clemson last year? I mean, Ohio State, I think, will go out every week and try and make it statement time. And the way the schedule's set up for Ohio State, you've got the two loudest teams about playing football kicking off on Saturday, and then you've got prime time with Penn State and ABC the following week. Nebraska is going to have an FS1 showdown with Barry and the Badgers and company at 2:30 for Nebraska's home opener. But I'm intrigued by this. The nation's eyes will descend on Columbus, and it'll be a really good opportunity for Nebraska. And I think that's how you go in with this. I think you play loose. I think you play confident. And I don't think you put too much pressure on yourself. And steps forward with this program will be evident this year. Will they be better defensively? You hope so in that front seven, getting pressure and stopping the run. Will they be better at quarterback, whether that's Adrian or that's what you see from Luke? Will they be better running the football? That'll be an emphasis, yes. But when it comes to what this offense wants to be, throwing the football, are they going to be better on the edge to get some of their dudes in space, that perimeter blocking? I mean, these are all questions. And special teams is also like number 3 or tied for third on the list of areas that got to be better if this team, they're going to go bowling. But if this team wants to be 7-2, 6-3, 5-4. I mean, go down the list here of what's the win projectile like, and they've got to be better in close games. And I think that comes down to execution, and maybe they're ready to take that step. I know they've been working on it. I know they've been preparing. They are, from the work they put in and just the want to. That still has to translate to 4 quarters of football, but the attitude and effort's been there, and that's pretty important.
There is one thing about the game on Saturday that I know for certain, and that is that if we do a steak and a beer bet, I will be wrong.
Okay, so
it's been a bad year.
So here's what's going to happen when we get to Friday, and we're down at Kincaid Brewing down in the Haymarket on Friday. Well, I am. You're back here. We'll do a steak and a beer bet again, and I'll let you pick, and I'll let you pick and be wrong again.
It's just been so tough.
It's okay.
I every single game I can't be more wrong.
Dude, that was and we'll get into Levante and Sue's stomp party on poor Aaron Rodgers, who was my fantasy quarterback. That went well. But let's hear some more from Scott Frost. And a little bit later in the press session today, the Zoom meeting, the question was asked about, what separated Adrian and what separated Luke McCaffrey. And I don't think this is just, it's okay, pat on the back narrative, let's keep a quarterback here type lip service. I honestly believe that you've got a young, budding, super talented quarterback in Luke McCaffrey that you're saying nice and good things about, but you believe him. And he's going to be somebody that's important to this offense this year, either with some time he'll see playing quarterback or the fact that there is, and I hate saying this, but you've had your guy who's been a starter for 2 years going into his third year, 21 starts. There's been some games he's missed because of what this offense has asked him to do and the fact he's gotten dinged. I mean, you've got to be able to roll with the punches physically and mentally in this offense. And it's through no fault of Adrian's that he's gotten dinged up. I mean, pretty severely. I mean, we're talking knees and foot, right? That were pretty physical, violent acts to his body. So you have two options here at quarterback. This is who you're going with at starter. And right now, because of his experience, there's some certainty there. More from Frost here with the quarterback spot and the difference between Adrian and Luke, that separator.
I don't know how much separation there is. I think we have two first-string quarterbacks. That's the way we feel about them. I really believe if Luke would have been the one that had already been playing and we would have had the same camp, it would probably be Luke. They both had tremendous camps, and we see ourselves as having the luxury of having two starters.
So kind of doubling down here on I have two starters. You'll hopefully get to see them both without putting the brakes or pulling a Gary Pinkel. Pinkel at times when he was at Missouri, he had the booger eater, Chase Daniel. And you had Gabbert once in a while that would get inserted as well. And sometimes it didn't matter. Missouri was still going to win by 20. Sometimes Missouri self-imposed breaks on their momentum and offense. That's what you got to be careful of. You don't want to overthink or ruin a flow offensively. That said, it's part of coaching and part of timing to know when to look at this other number one guy you have. But Nebraska's in a good spot. You'll see both guys play, I think. And it comes down to Adrian not only just winning the job, but playing well enough to keep the job, knowing that it sounds like it was pretty thin.
I mean, it's also tough whenever your quarterback, if you're going to take him off the field, he's now been voted your captain. And to me, that's whenever this quarterback race ended, was whenever they released captains, I think, on Friday. Was that Saturday? Whenever they released that Adrian was a captain, I mean, a big role of the quarterback on the field is being the leader of the offense. So whenever he was voted captain, that's a big role of the quarterback too, and I don't think that you could take away a captain from the field, if that makes sense.
Well, he can't be voted captain and not your starter.
Yep.
Right? And for his peers, and we'll hear from Adrian here on being voted captain, for him to get that vote, I think showed that here's where my teammates are at with me. Here's what they feel about me. They can all like me, and I think they can all respect my ability. But when push comes to shove, am I a guy that they hold up on one of those pedestals of doing it the right way on and off the field, and they put their money where their mouth is by voting him? I mean, look at who else is a captain. And we'll hear from DiCaprio Boodle here in about 20 minutes. He's a guy that has absolutely climbed the ladder through hard work. Farniok's been here forever. Colin Miller's a guy that's also a staple defensively that's another senior. So you go through that list, and then Cade Warner. All we've heard about him is taking leadership by the lapel off field and just getting guys around to work out together. And those are the guys you need. And it's one thing to be popular, but it's also a belief part of the equation when you are voted captain. I mean, guys, that's the ultimate sign of respect. And I don't know the voting numbers. I don't know who is receiving votes. I don't know who had the most. Well, we know who had the most votes, but I think there's some guys that really feel pretty highly about Luke McCaffrey as well. And I think the difference, too, to your point, which was great, about, look, once he got voted captain, he's got to be the starter. I think there's a genuine relationship and respect, and it's probably a good relationship between those two guys at quarterback. I think Adrian's pretty thankful he's got someone pushing him, and I think Luke's a guy that is going to keep battling and wants to win that job eventually, and he'll show the patience to keep chopping wood with it, just based on the work he put in. This is Adrian on being voted captain. We'll have much more from Frost and Adrian as the show rolls forward.
I'm honored. It's always a great honor to be voted by your teammates as a captain. It means a lot to me, and I'm going to continue being the leader that I know I can be, and be there for those guys. And then all I could say is finally. I'm sure you heard it in that speech I gave there, but our guys are ready. We've been practicing for a while and doing different things, obviously, and we're ready to finally get to play. I can't believe we haven't played a game yet already. It's already been so bizarre, and to finally be in a game week, we're excited for it.
You and the rest of the state, Nebraska, Ohio State, ready to rock on Saturday, and you got your starter at quarterback, and there is upside. There's ceiling from a performance standpoint, that dual threat. We'll talk to Jay Moore, Blackshirt Husker NFL. He's up next, part of Big Red Wrap-Up. Hail Varsity continues on a Monday.
And we're back
Fellas, you think we could listen to the radio listen?
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Thanks for spending time. It is game week. It's Nebraska. It's Ohio State, a guy that was in a lot of big games as an all Big 12 performer. He is co-host of Big Red Wrap-Up, and you hear him with the More To It podcast, and I rope him into the show as much as I can. We say hi to Jay Moore, Blackshirt Husker NFLer at JMoore44. Jay, you got to be feeling awesome, man. It's football finally Saturday. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, it's been such a good feeling. I recorded a little pregame look ahead to Ohio State pod, earlier this morning, just a quick 20 minutes, 4 questions, heading into 2020 season and the Ohio State game. And, I didn't think I was going to be able to do that this year. So we're kind of back onto a schedule, somewhat of a normal routine, hopefully, fingers crossed that, we get all 9 games and potentially a bowl game played. So, but everything's looking good so far. And, it's just nice. It's nice. We've been teased for the last 4 weeks. Now we get our chance.
This is outstanding. It's felt like, and this is just completely hypothetical, but when the gal's dancing on stage and she thinks you're awesome, but it's because you got a 5 in front of you. That's how it's felt.
Right.
Elijah's shaking his head in shame at me on that one, but, sorry, I had to go stripper pole reference there. Okay, so I need to know from you, what's your feel? It's Monday, but are you optimistic about Saturday? Is it going to be a killing? Do you have any feel on where this thing's at? It's either going to be competitive, where the Buckeyes pull away, or it's just going to be they are that good and there's that big a gap in talent. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a track meet. The spread does not make a whole lot of sense to me. Anywhere from 23 to 26 points as Nebraska's underdog, and over-unders at 65 and a half. It shows me that's pretty high scoring, and hopefully it's high scoring on both sides. I think you're going to see more of a track meet. I think Nebraska's going to have some issues defensively just because of the young defensive line, even with a pretty experienced back 6 or 7 behind them. Still can't cover up for, you just having guys that played enough games up in that front 3 or front 4. And then you look at, what Nebraska's able to do offensively and with finally having a good, solid offensive line group. On my pregame pod, I pointed out a really interesting stat. So Ohio State, defensively, there's only 3 teams that had a success rate against Ohio State defensively of 39% or better. One was Clemson, one was Penn State, and the other one was Nebraska, surprisingly. So obviously, looking at that game last year, even though it was an ass kicking, but Nebraska was able to kind of do do some things against them offensively. Just wasn't enough. I mean, Nebraska defensively couldn't stop a nosebleed last year, so against them. And hopefully Adrian and Diedrich and Wandale, and they can get some points scored. I think they're going to have to score some points, because I just don't know if, defensively we'll be able to slow them down. I mean, you're talking about one of the most potent offenses last year, about top 10 in every major category offensively. Obviously, a potential Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback. Trey Sermon, the Oklahoma transfer, Master Teague back in the backfield as well. So they're going to have their hands full. I feel, I think Nebraska covers, but it's just one of those where they might have some chances early on, but Ohio State's too good. They're too damn good, and Nebraska's we don't have the horsepower defensively to hang. You got to have some dudes up front, and we will. The guys we have, Ty Robinson, I just don't think we have the guys up front to slow them down enough for the offense to catch up.
Is it a case of just when it comes to the horses up front, just they're on the roster and it's just too soon to ask them to do that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not a physical thing; it's a mental thing. It's being able to be keyed in for 40 to 60 snaps. I mean, all these guys can play good physical football for a few snaps, but can their minds be in it? That's just the thing is, you're in the middle of a game and you got to be keyed in. You can't let your mind wander. You can't let your mind start telling you how tired you are. You got to kind of overcome that. And, when you're tired, you got to be able to stay mentally tough and focus on your keys, and your eyes got to be good, and focus on what you need to look at as defensive tackle, the defensive end, and so on and so forth. I mean, Ben Stilley is the guy that's returning has played the most. But, yeah, you have Team Green, a JUCO transfer, Ty Robinson. Maybe you'll have to see a guy like Casey Rogers, but that's just the thing. Damian Daniels, I can't think of his first name, but Thompson, always 97. Deontay Thomas, there we go. And they've played some snaps, but it's just like they haven't played consistent. They haven't played consistent over, 4 quarters to really have your trust. Now, vice versa, the offensive line, you're like, hey, them dudes have played a lot of snaps. Even though you might have a young guy in Bryce Benhart, but you have 4 guys that played consistently for 12 games last year in all 4 quarters that you can kind of look back on and, hey, these guys have done it so far. They're not going to be overwhelmed at times. I have afraid early on in the year the D-line could be a little overwhelmed at times.
Jay Moore is with us on Hail Varsity Radio. And Jay, result of the game aside, which players are you looking forward to watching for the Huskers in this game against Ohio State, and what do you want to see out of them on Saturday?
Just obviously competitive fight, physicality. That's the thing. I want to see them be physical, get back to that physical way of football. I want to see the offense get back, the up-tempo, get that speed going. Just that what we were kind of expecting, what you saw with Central Florida, just kind of running on all cylinders. Obviously, excited to see Diedrich Mills kind of carry out what he was able to do at the end of last year once he was kind of the guy and Maurice Washington was not in the picture anymore. He kind of excelled knowing that he was the guy. Excited to see what Adrian can do, how he can, see where he's gotten better, to see if he's, more physical, quicker than last year, how he is healthy. Obviously see Wandale. What's Omar Manning's deal? Is he going to be able to play? You need him to play. I want to see what the tight end position is going to be this year. You have the Vokalek transfer from Rutgers, Jack Stoll, Austin Allen. We get those guys going to start producing defensively. That the great, the experienced secondary with Boodle and Cam Taylor-Britt and all those guys, and Will Honus, and I'm excited to see everyone. I want to see. I'm really excited. I'll say this. I'm really excited to see Luke Reimers finally get a chance to kind of show what he can do, because I think at the linebacker spot where we lacked a little speed and athleticism, I think he can kind of be that guy that can help be that eraser behind a young, inexperienced D-line. So I'm excited to see him as well.
Jay, couple of thoughts before we say goodbye. One, with Adrian getting the nod when you heard Frost today, and I know you know Coach pretty well, what was your read on the nod given to Adrian? I think it was earned and warranted, so that's not my question. But it still sounds really close because of the fact he says, look, man, we got 2 number ones.
Yeah, I mean, listen to that press conference, and I think when Adrian was on first, and I think Sean Callahan asked, like, hey, have you been announced a starter yet? Adrian really couldn't answer. You're like, whoa. Like, oof. Like, I was one of those guys who thought, you know, it was Adrian's position to lose. Obviously, Luke showed some good things last year, but, you know, he's only in there to play a handful of snaps, and, you know, let's be honest, he only had a few, you know, he had some plays designed for him, but he was still never fully involved in the playbook. So, I love it. I think it's a great thing that you have 2 number ones. You have constant competition. You have constant battle. You have to be constantly looking over your shoulder. Adrian's looking out for, you know, making sure Luke's not getting too close, and then Luke's trying to catch up with Adrian. That's great. It's awesome. I mean, that's what made Nebraska so good for, you know, in the 90s. Like, you had Tommy and Brooke, you know, so that's a great thing. That's a great thing to have. Was a little surprised. I just thought, you know, Adrian being a third-year guy and Luke being a much younger, but obviously the pedigree Luke comes from, and his you know, they talked about his, you know, kind of being a football nerd in the film room. Not surprised he's not right. He's right there as well. He has the physical capabilities. So it's a great thing. Love that we have 2 number ones.
Okay, Caleb Tanner, what gets him to pop this year?
Yeah, I mentioned that in my preview pod this afternoon. I said, can Nebraska get some sort of all-conference pass rusher back? You know, defense where they need, go to him or Garrett Nelson. You know, in that 3-4 defense, you got to have a dominant edge rusher. And you know, all signs point to Caleb. He has all the God-gifted talents. I think hopefully year 3, he's comfortable. He knows he has a full grasp of this offense. Has a little more confidence about him. He's been developed. You know, he's a junior now. You know, developed with the strengths, with the vision and using your eyes and just and develop some pass rushes, have some good feel for you know, pass in the pocket and, you know, counter. It's a lot, but it's time for him to go and show up, and you know, he's got a lot of time to develop. So, you know, it's time to go, because this 3-4 defense needs a guy like him to pop. And if you don't have I don't want to say elite, but an all-conference type edge rusher, 3-4 defenses are hard to be successful with, but he definitely needs to go.
Jay, about a minute left. The other guy at that position is Garrett Nelson. What do you need to see out of him development-wise for this 2020 season?
Well, his motor goes and he needs to play under control. Where he was a liability last year because he was out of control too many times. He has to have a better grasp. I know sometimes they say, hey, if you're going to make a mistake going 1,000 miles an hour, which he did a lot, but it was too out of control. He needs to learn to. You can't ever tell someone to slow down, but it's, you know, play with more control, understand your role, and really he needs to define his role in the defense a lot more than he did last year. He was just too out of control. Other than that, he's going to cause havoc, and he'll be a crazy man out there, which is going to be fun to watch.
More To It podcast. Check that out. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play with Hail Varsity's Jay Moore. And Jay, we will touch base again. It was awesome to talk some ball with you. It's fantastic that it's game week and it's Nebraska, Ohio State. Can't wait for it. Follow Jay on Twitter at JMoore44. Catch him on Big Red Wrap-Up tomorrow night on NET. Jaybird, we'll talk later in the week, brother. Thanks for the time today.
Yep, you got it. Thanks, Vinny.
There he is, Jay Moore with us. Good to talk with the Blackshirts and pass rusher. We'll hear from DiCaprio Boodle. Some more thoughts on Nebraska, Ohio State. Hail Varsity continues.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time. Great to be with you. Game week. It's Ohio State, Nebraska. Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Good stuff from Jay Moore. Elijah, get that posted on the ESPN Lincoln On Demand. The podcast, it's So they've been posted forever on HailVarsity.com. I still think that's part of the plan. There's just a bit of a website transition. So the podcasts, today's show and the last few shows are up on iTunes. Subscribe to that. It don't cost you nothing. And get the daily podcast sent to you with Hail Varsity Radio, everyday show. And subscribe for that. That way it's automatically sent to you. You have Spotify is where we're posted as well for the show. The on-demand section, some of our interviews, and, of course, the Twitter feed from ESPN Lincoln and Hail Varsity has some of our 2-minute drill, some of the juiciest parts of sit-downs. Charlie McBride, Mr. Blackshirts, 20 minutes away. We'll talk with Greg Smith. We do have news from Omar Manning. And Omar just went to Twitter about 5 minutes ago. And he says, don't know where the news came from that I'm opting out. That is false. GBR. So there's been a lot of rumor and speculation on Omar from an injury standpoint and some personal time. And I have not met the guy nor spoken with him, but film speaks for itself. You've seen snippets of highlights. You know what kind of difference maker he can be at 3.5, 6'4", and just extremely skilled. Phenomenal wide receiver, will be big in this offense. It's just a timing standpoint. How quick can he get up to speed and contribute? And I think with his skill set and athleticism, sooner rather than later, once he's comfortable and once the staff is comfortable. So for him to chime in on Twitter game week, good. That there's no opt-out, because we had heard that, but it wasn't from him. So we didn't really move forward at all saying, well, I think Omar. No, we have never gone that direction. We've always kind of been a wait-and-see approach. And even from Coach Frost last week, just saying, he hopes he can be ready to go. We'll see. That's if he's had limited practice time for whatever reason, that isn't fair to ask him to go in and do it. Now, you'd love him to be up to speed and be a target on Saturday, because Omar Manning's type dudes are the guys that Ohio State's been killing people with for years. Evens the playing field, levels the playing field when you got a guy like Omar to throw the football to. We'll see. No depth chart released. Fine with me. Keep them guessing. That was really a topic of conversation, wasn't it? Was just the preparation. And a lot of the Ohio State writers asked Coach Frost, how much more difficult is it going to be to get ready for Ohio State? Listen, you don't know what they're going to do. They've got a new coordinator defensively. Also, you have Lubick. And I think the hope and the feel is you're going to be able to do some adjustments and game plan and get things righted quicker offensively for Nebraska. You're going to get better wide receiver play. You're going to get better edge blocking. And you're going to have Greg Austin with some influence here on continuing to pound the rock. Don't put it all in your quarterback against an Ohio State front seven to chuck the football 40 times. Be a run-heavy football team with some quarterback run and just dagger people with play action. That's what was so good about 18, was you had Adrian playing at a high level. You had a pretty good level of offensive line. You had Stanley and JD doing their thing. And the tight ends had a kick-butt day 2 years ago. I can see that happening. You're going to have communication issues, potentially, because it's game one. Ohio State's had to reload. Are they as good as last year? I don't know without Chase or Okudah, but they're still damn good. They're still, 7, 8, 9 draft picks and a lot of dudes that are probably first or second round. I mean, their defensive line's great. Their linebackers are phenomenal. Their secondary is really, really skilled. So it's not an easy task. But I tell you what, with Nebraska having a chance, once they were running some option and some quick hit stuff last year, what killed Nebraska was turnovers, and it had Ohio State guys just making plays. Period. Nebraska needs to flip that around and use some of their own guys that can go out there and play. I think Nebraska is going to be able to go play confident. They play these guys enough where I think from a mindset standpoint, I don't know that you're going to get a Nebraska team that when the going gets tough, they struggle. I don't think you're going to have that type of mental hurdle, here we go again. I think you're going to have a little bit of a refreshed start, and I think from an adjustment standpoint, you're going to have some input from Austin and from Lubick that can help things out. Bottom line is you're going to have better wide receiver play. You should, because you have more options, and a key to that this year is going to be, what type of production do you get from a guy like Omar?
Yeah, and the whole thing with Omar is in a year like this, there's no eligibility that's being taken off the board. So
go when you're ready and
exactly,
you're not burning time.
Exactly. Don't go before your body tells you it's ready. Don't go before you feel ready in the scheme. Of course, I want to see him out there Saturday. But the news about him not opting out is great, and I think it's just letting us know that, hey, even if I'm not playing this very much or at all on Saturday, I'm still here. I'm still with the team, and I'm still going to try to make an impact this season. That's what I'm seeing with that.
It is. It's a statement from him. I'm still here. That's a good thing. Let's hear from DiCaprio Bootle, because he's a guy that I think a lot of high-profile guys can look at and say, wow, look where he's at. Look how he's grinded. And he was kind of an off-the-radar satellite camp kid. There was some skill there. There's some development, but there's a lot of internal burn by DiCaprio Bootle to be as good as he can be. That's a lesson for the high-profile guy that comes in. That's a lesson for a walk-on or a guy that may be a recruiting afterthought, and that's not a knock on him. That's just the recruiting world we live in. Some guys go to camps and get noticed and get stars. Some guys, for whatever reason, don't. But you can be a difference maker on offense. And when it comes to the journey here, this is DiCaprio kind of recounting a story, and I think his story is important to hear because the other 150 guys, future and current, can look at him as an example, as a leader, and as a guy that's played pretty good football.
At the time, the coaches at Rutgers were hitting me up to come to the camp because they were going to be at the camp, and I was just like, okay, well, I need to go to this camp, try to pick up this offer from Rutgers, but I saw all the other schools were going to be there, so I just used it as an opportunity to, basically put myself out there. And at the time, honestly, I was nobody in terms of recruiting. I had a couple small offers, didn't have a big offer from anywhere, to be honest, I don't really know why that was. I just knew that, I was just going to keep working and just let it happen, just put it all in God's hands and just let it work for me. And then going to the camp, you guys know the story, ran the 4.340. From then I had their attention, they were just watching me like a hawk.
Yeah, and it worked out, and he continued to grind. More from one of your captains, DiCaprio Bootle, on the other side. It's awesome to be with you on game week. It is Nebraska. It's Ohio State. We'll wind down hour one with Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Winding down this first hour, Charlie McBride, Greg Smith, and some NFL thoughts. Good weekend for Ndamukong Suh and Levante David, man. They were a lot of fun to watch. The steak and the beer on the wall here for those Friday bets, Elijah. But hey, we'll just keep going, and pretty soon you will buy me either one of those tomahawk steaks, or we'll just do a 96er. John Candioed.
I'd go for the tomahawk.
Tomahawks are great. I think what you need to do with those, and Jay Bird has laid this out for me, Erickson, you got to throw it in the oven, and then you sear it.
See, I've got a guy.
Because it's as big as a freaking pot roast. Have you done one before?
I have not, but I've got a guy for tomahawk steaks.
Okay, you've got a guy.
I've got a guy.
That'll be good. No, we did some grilling Saturday and watched Bama, Georgia. And we did some wings, and there were some wings that were not frozen, but they were kind of in a cold case that were pre-smoked. So we put them in Coach Brett's air fryer, and they tasted as good as I would have because when I do wings, usually I'll buy them out of a cold case versus the frozen. Nothing against frozen, because I've done those too. Wings are awesome. But when I do wings and I smoke them, I'll get them kind of fresh.
Yeah.
And then I smoke them for 3.5 hours on my pit boss. And they're great. But what we purchased was so easy. It took like 20 minutes. And they were so smoky and just done perfectly that it was just too easy to go air fryer with them. And they had the smoke taste and flavor. I mean, it was incredible. And it was, now there's something to be said to keeping an eye on the smoker and pouring a crown. Babysitting.
That's just a part of a Saturday right there.
That's the best part. You put the TV out and you get the smoker going. So that was really good.
Well, really fast. Does the air fryer like crisp them up right?
Yeah. No, I mean, when I ate them Saturday, and I shared before you get in there on me, they tasted like I had done them on my smoker.
Wow.
Right? Mm-hmm. And that's incredible. No headache.
Okay. I'll have to pick up some of those.
No, yeah. They were really, it was like $3 for a pound of them.
See, that's my problem is I don't have a smoker at my place. So I can grill wings, I can do a lot of stuff, but I can never get the good smoked wing flavor, which is the best way to do it.
Well, in the way that they separate off the bone.
Oh, yeah.
Just some food for thought for Saturday. It's going to be an awesome experience. There'll be football. We want to see you in the rail yard, socially distanced, of course, for Nebraska, Ohio State. We'll be down there Saturday morning and throughout kickoff. And then Real Red Reaction is back following Nebraska, Ohio State. I'll have that with Tim Bob. And we'll talk about a major upset, a great effort, or a curb stopping. There's 3 doors to choose from on Saturday's contest. I mean, the line's the line, the over-under's the over-under. And I'm thinking you could see some points, because that's how college football's gone. Want to remind you about your friends at West Blue Realty. I tell you what, they take care of you so well. West Blue Realty does. They specialize in residential home sales in Lincoln and the surrounding communities, and they can help make 2020 smooth for you if you're looking at a new home. For a limited time, you mentioned Hale Varsity, and West Blue Realty will provide you up to $1,000 on the closing of your next home purchase. You got to call Tom Luby. Tom can help at 402-540-3768. Kelly Hofschneider. Kelly's outstanding as well. 402-202-2312. It pays to work with West Blue. WestBlueRealty.com. Go see Kelly and Tom today, 1120 K Street, Suite 200. Charlie McBride's next.
Welcome to Hale Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hale Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Thanks for hanging out into Hour 2. It's Hale Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. It is that time, and it's awesome to chat with Coach Charlie McBride. It is game week. It's Nebraska and Ohio State. Mr. Blackshirt, Mondays with Charlie. Coach, you have a little extra pep in your step now that kickoff. We can see that finish line. How are you?
Yeah, that's right, except for the weather around here.
Well, we went from 72 and golfing on Saturday to 40 and whatever garbage it was yesterday, and we may sneak in a 73-degree day Thursday, but it's going to be kind of cloudy, and I'll just call it Big Ten weather, but you're a football coach.
That's right. That's exactly what it is. It's dreary, and I don't know what they call it here. They just call it the same as, you call 1 minute it's one way, the next minute it's something else, right?
It is. So, what are you doing Saturday for the game? And I asked that. I mean, how are you gonna watch this opener? What are your plans?
Well, it starts at 10 o'clock here, so I guess 11 be back there. I guess at 11, from what I can gather. right now things change quick, with all this stuff going on. So, but I just stay home. I got a good seat right there on the 50. And, well, we'll see. I get about as nervous as I did when I was coaching. It gets still it gets you a little bit. You worry about the coaches and you worry about something going haywire, or it's no different than actually doing it. Once the game gets going, it's a little different, and then we just kind of sit here and absorb what it is and think about. I don't think about what defense I'm going to call. That's the one thing I don't do.
You don't put yourself through that anymore?
No, I don't want to do that. And I don't second guess either.
Hey, that's all right. I'm wondering, when we look at Nebraska, Ohio State, and the experts in Vegas have spoken, there's not a lot of faith in Nebraska with this. And that's Nebraska's got to go out there and do their thing, and it's going to be just weird for everybody. But when you look at this game, what needs to happen for Nebraska in this game to be competitive? Because I know they're young at some spots, and Ohio State's really, really good, but I think Nebraska can be good this year.
Well, I think the biggest thing is right now is that they have a little bit of pressure on them. Okay. Nebraska does, to play well, and I think that's good. I know sometimes it gets players a little uneasy, but I think they're excited about playing. And I think the biggest thing is when it comes out, Ohio State better be ready to play, because these are kind of games that we used to play at times when we knew we had maybe at that time a better team, and they have probably as good a team as there is in the country. And I think what you're looking for our kids to just really play hard, play well, and if they can win this game. It's not that they can't. They can. You just don't know what's going to happen. But I think the situation where they're such an underdog, I think in some ways it might be a good thing, because it makes them think, Ohio State think, well, this is going to be an easy ride, and especially for their young players, sometimes they don't catch on right away. Mm-hmm. And I've watched enough Ohio State games since I've been done where they've been down by with whack teams, been behind, and they come back in the end just because they have depth. And they have, things like that those other teams don't have, but they probably are going to run into a team that probably has got some depth now, and a little bit more than they're used to having.
Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. What's the toughest thing about Justin Fields? As you put on your coordinator hat, you've had to face incredible quarterbacks over your career, and this Fields kid's really, really special. How would you even try and defend him?
Well, I think the thing is, you just have to make him. The kid's going to run with the football. Can't find anybody, and that's where that's the scary part about. Any quarterback you see, especially with this spread offense, once they spread the offense, they spread out your defense, and that creates a lot of holes and a lot of things for these good quarterbacks that can run, not only throw it but can run. And right now, I think they probably have. I don't know their personnel that well, but and listen to them talk. They are very good at all positions, and it's one of those things where you just have to prepare yourselves, especially to make the big plays, try to go after the football, to try to make turnovers and cause something to happen. And it's one of those things you have to play the full 60 minutes. You can't take a nap and you in the game at any time. I don't care what the score is. I mean, whether you're winning or losing, you just got to keep playing. And I think that's the biggest thing with Nebraska. They, I think, playing well is really important. I mean, and not making a lot of, penalties. First week penalties is the tough thing. You're opening up with one of the best teams in the country, where it would normally be, an out of conference game, and those things are usually who knows what is going to happen to them, and so it's like playing. I mean, it's like playing in the middle of the season or at the end of the season now, and you're actually starting the season. So, I think there'll be a little more focus, let's say, by doing it that way.
Charlie McBride's with us Mondays with Charlie at Hail Varsity Radio. So defensively for Nebraska, I mean, you've got some kids that have played a lot of ball. Ben Stilley's been here for a long time. Colin Miller was named a captain. DiCaprio Boodle is a really great story, but he's earned his teammates' respect. Nebraska's got some guys that can go get the football. You just haven't seen a lot from maybe some of the other guys on that defensive line. And
right.
We're always cognizant too, Coach, of that pass rush and stopping the run. And what do you expect from Nebraska from a jump wise this season to be better at getting after the quarterback and stopping the run?
Well, one thing is especially being up in the front seven, you got to just the thing that a lot of kids don't, if you worry about making a mistake or you worry about it's not going to work, you got to just let her fly. I mean, if you make a mistake, do it 1,000,000 miles an hour. I mean, don't sit around and say, "Oh, I think should I do this or do this?" Go do it. I mean, I'd rather see a kid just going 1,000,000 miles an hour and making a mistake than I would have them standing around doing nothing and just waiting for an accident to happen. I mean, it's that way, and I think a lot of them. I think a mixture of guys young guys and old guys sometimes is a good thing, because I think the younger guys will really concentrate to not let the older guys down or not make mistakes on their part. Because they know a lot of them know what they're doing and won't make mistakes. So, I think sometimes it's good when you have a good mixture of people like that, that you can, these older guys can really help them along, too, and encourage them, as the game goes on. And sometimes you find out, kids that didn't know how good they really were turn out to be really good players in game situations.
Charlie McBride's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Charlie, with a quarterback like Justin Fields across from you for the Buckeyes on Saturday, it feels like the Huskers getting pressure is going to be important to slowing down that Buckeyes offense. Do you think that the Huskers will be able to get pressure with just 4 guys, or do you see them bringing guys from all over the place, bringing some corner blitzes and some linebackers?
No, that would if you have a good system, arranged where you can, you don't create a lot of running lanes, if everything gets sewed up and then the guy can run and pick up 15, 20, 30 yards a crack, sometimes those things are a little discouraging when you have something where you are getting pressure and he gets out of there. So, those are things that happen to everybody's defense. It's not something a lot of times you can count on, and I think that's where I think a lot of the instincts come with players that have good instincts, players that can see angles and attack at the proper angles, and things like that. So there's a lot of little things that go into keeping that quarter around. But pressure, to me, I always kind of relate to pressure from the outside to squeeze things in. And force things to go inside, because that's where all your friends are. You get outside and he gets outside you. You haven't got many friends out there like you would if you squeeze the thing down and really protect that the inside and try not to let them break containment. That's one of the important things, I think, with a quarterback or even with the whole offense. And again, it's the same thing that you don't overrun things, especially with all this zone stuff and the cutback that comes out of it. So your backside people have to really be, be aware of what's going on, and especially the backside linebackers and defensive ends and things don't overrun things.
Coach Charlie McBride's with us Mondays with Charlie, Hail Varsity Radio, Nebraska, Ohio State. Coach, what's it say to you about Adrian Martinez emerging in a very tight quarterback race and also his teammates voting him captain? How do you look at this quarterback situation Scott's had to handle?
Well, I think it's good for him. If the pressure is there with him, I think it's going to, that's where a quarterback really has to focus, whether it's a meeting or whether it's a game or practice. You've got somebody breathing down your neck and at all times. And I think that's part of life. That's the way, and people don't realize that's pretty much the way you live every day when you go to work. Maybe it doesn't seem like there's 90,000 people or millions of people watching you now. It'll be all TV stuff, but it's the idea that you've got to really concentrate on on your business. And he's done that, and but the thing is what I think. I always felt like I felt more comfortable when we did have a backup player at each position that we had that we could really depend on. And I think that for a quarterback, I think if you're winning a game and something would happen where you got a nick or an injury where the other quarterback had to go in, you sure want to be. Have somebody that's going to go up there and keep the thing going. And so I think that's what we do have, and I think that's what's good. And I think probably they both when you ask them, they both feel pretty good about each other. There may you always competitors are always kind of down deep growly, but I don't see that too much. In college players like I do in pro football.
Coach, about a minute here. How do you foresee Scott Frost's offense with this run game, with this O-line, stress in Ohio State? What can the offense do to keep it competitive Saturday?
Well, I think keep the football, but away from them. I mean, that's but you got to do your thing. You can't. You've got to let your offense go, I think, in a case like this, because you haven't had the opportunity to find out maybe what is the things that are the best things to do. Oh yeah, maybe if you do little things, you have to find out sometime if this stuff works, if they're changing anything a little bit. And but I just think that you go into the game. I think I don't think Ohio State's going to change their defense. I think that they at least got a situation where they're going to be aware of what's going on up front, and I think the same with them too. It isn't going to be a surprise to anybody. It's going to be the offense that might be the surprise to. But defensively, I would not guess that there's a whole lot of changes going on. I would think that Nebraska is going to get a little more pressure from the outside and let those outside backers and defensive ends do some things, and you have to let it fly. I mean, don't second guess yourself. Just go. I mean, it's I've always, because every time you do that, every time I think you second guess yourself, you're wrong.
Sure.
And so. If you think you made a mistake when you make a call, which I'm sure Scott does in some cases, and they try to change him at the line of scrimmage, and they try to do those things, but, that takes time. I mean, I don't care if you're experienced. It takes a couple of games just to get the rhythm and get your timing and everything else. So you're going to see that on both sides of the ball, probably a little bit of that.
Charlie McBride with us, Mondays with Charlie. Coach, we'll recap Saturday here next week. You take care and enjoy some football.
I'll do it. Okay. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you later. Go Big Red, okay? All the way.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
That was fun to chat with Charlie McBride. Let it fly is his advice. And we'll see how high Nebraska can get out of the gate against Ohio State. Let's talk some recruiting and some football. Greg Smith, recruiting insider, HailVarsity.com and magazine, at Greg Smith HV on Twitter. So, Greg, we were talking towards the end of last hour, and we're going to get into some food for 2 seconds because, well, football is back, which means folks will be tailgating and grilling at home potentially, or the smoker will be turned on. And we went air fryer as an audible with some wings that were kind of pre-smoked, and it was like I put them on my smoker for 4 hours. Have you tried that yet? Have you done an air fryer versus a just the wings on the smoker? Have you done the shortcut is my question.
Okay, so I tried it briefly, but I don't think I didn't really do anything to them or anything like that. So it sounds like I need to try it again. Well,
we got lucky with just some packaged wings that were pre-smoked and seasoned. So all we had to do to not screw them up was make sure we hit on. Okay.
Okay. So I mean, maybe I need your wing supplier out there, and then we can kind of go from there. That's what this sounds like.
No, we'll get it handled, but we'll get into some recruiting in a second. But we were talking with Jay earlier, and Jay Moore, and I know you had your chance to do your podcast with Mr. Jay Foreman. What's the quick 411 on what's going to be dropped tomorrow with Hurrdat Media and Hail Varsity with you and Jay Foreman here? I know you guys are going to get into Nebraska, Ohio State.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just wrapped, and we were doing kind of a season preview to me, it was really interesting to look because it feels like 2020, especially around Husker football, is just like the year of questions, right? Mm-hmm. So we kind of ran through, what are the things that you really want to know kind of going into the season? And spoiler alert, I'm really excited to see, or really questioning, what's going to happen with the offensive line. And that's not necessarily in a bad way. I just think that could be what kind of powers Nebraska, and there'd be a lot of good domino effects coming off if the offensive line is as good as I think Greg Austin and Scott Frost think it can be in 2020.
That domino effect, think about what is not on you as quarterback, right? If you get a good offensive line in the run game, you don't have to throw because you have to. You can maybe throw when you want to. And that's a bigger picture here with Adrian, and let's go there with him getting the nod. But it's a tight race, and you'll see Luke this year, which we expect anyway. And, what Adrian do you see Saturday?
I think you end up seeing a guy that's focused and kind of sharp because he's had to be sharp throughout camp, right? And I think that there's a secondary thing, and you said it kind of there, is that we think we're going to see Luke at some point this year, whether or not that's special packages that Coach Frost puts together for him, or, if he has to come in and relief in any type of situation. I think we'll end up having to see both quarterbacks at some point this year. But because of that, it can make Adrian continue to stay sharp, because otherwise I think the leash will be a lot shorter for him this year. And so I think that he's going to come out sharp and focused and ready to go.
Greg Smith was with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Greg, when you're looking at the matchup against Ohio State, it might be the toughest defense that the Huskers have to go up against this year. So when you reference short leash for Adrian, what's your take on what is that moment going to be where you have to go to the backup? Is it going to be because of turnovers? Is it because just the scoreboard? What are you thinking in your mind that leash is?
Yeah, it's interesting with this game with Ohio State because you almost want to. You don't want to throw it out and say, okay, nothing can happen that would make him get pulled or anything like that, or make any sweeping judgments, because you do want to measure yourself against the best. But I do think that careless turnovers would be a quick way for Martinez to come out of a game. But this would be really interesting with this Ohio State defense, they do have to replace guys on this defense. So there's three of their four starters on the defensive line, three of the four in the secondary, and yes, they have, high 4 stars and some 5 stars that are waiting and chomping at the bit to replace those guys. But those guys have to go do that in college football and show that they can handle, what their recruiting hype was. So that'll be interesting to see. But I do think that bad turnovers is the fastest way to find yourself on the bench if you're Martinez.
Greg, do you think Nebraska's going into this confident and house money type deal, or do you think everyone's kind of in the same spot where these two teams really fought to play, so they want to go out and kind of come in with a bang? I mean, as a competitor and a player, you're just going to go give it your best, and you got to be confident. So that's where you should come from as a player. That should be your mindset. But when I talk about ghosts, I mean, do you think this team's a little sheepish because of who they're opening with?
Yeah, I don't. I know that none of the guys, and the guys that were asked about it today, and we got to talk to all the captains. They were all pretty much like, hey, we got to go play who we got to play. We're excited to do it. But I don't know, just human nature, how you don't have a little bit of sheepishness when you go out there to play them. And then, which is why I think that Nebraska, it's so important for Nebraska to not necessarily get off to like this hot start where they're up 14 and nothing, or 21-3 or anything like that. Nebraska needs to come out of the first quarter being close, and that sounds really bad. Where things are just with this particular team against Ohio State and how things can get away from you, it's really important for Nebraska to have confidence early in this game so that then they can start to believe and they can start to go, hey, you're looking around saying, okay, all that hard work that we put in the offseason, all the talk about us wanting to play, like we're here for a reason, and then kind of build from there. You don't want to just, find yourself down 21-3 at the end of the first quarter. Like that would be a nightmare scenario for Nebraska.
Nebraska could play well, Greg, and it still could be 24 points. I mean, they can't, whatever happens Saturday, they can't get too fat off of this game if a surprise happens, but they can't let it, demoralize them either.
Right, and I think that's something that, we've talked about this before, about something that's happened, we think, to Nebraska before, where one game beats you twice, and it's not like you have an opportunity next week to exactly lick your wounds and play like kind of a soft opponent. Like you're playing someone else that you've got some ghosts against. You played them a little tougher historically in Wisconsin, but you need to take them down to be able to really make noise in the West. So there's not a lot of room to feel sorry for yourself or feel too good about yourself no matter what happens this weekend. You've got to take it 1 week at a time, the old cliche. But we know that Nebraska's had some issues with here.
Greg, I want to ask you about the spread for this game this weekend. It's set at 26 points at the moment, which seems like a lot. Do you think that's too much, too little? Or is that about right? Where do you think this game finishes on Saturday? I mean, it could go a lot of different ways.
And, my actual initial thought is that the spread, the line's a little high. Not necessarily based on what's been happening with the Nebraska-Ohio State series here recently, but just college football has been weird this year, right? Like, we've seen some weird results. We've seen closer games than we would expect. Like, some of those games still go to the favorite team, but we've seen those games be a little tighter than maybe expected. But part of this is, too, is that I think if you really break it down, like, the one thing that we feel like we know for sure going into this game is that Ohio State is going to put up points because they have a Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback. They return a lot of those guys on the offense, in particular that offensive line, which is going to be really good. They've got a lot of talent at the skill position at wide receiver, so you feel confident that they'll move the ball. It's whether or not Nebraska can match them point for point or find a way to create some timely turnovers.
Greg, what's the latest recruiting recon you got? How are things shaping up for 2021, and what's the outlook for 2022 right now? What have you been able to gather over the weekend?
Yeah, I think that Nebraska, it's so weird, and I wrote this earlier today for what's going to be the notebook tonight, is that it feels like with the season starting, it's like, oh, we should be getting ready for official visits and, the start of the season and all that, but we're, late October when the season kicks off, so we're just in a weird spot, then, of course, with no visits. But for the good news for Nebraska is that they're almost done with the class. They still really only have just a handful of spots left. I still think it's going to be all defense, probably 2 defensive lineman, a linebacker, and maybe another defensive back. We'll see which kind of best available player. But I still think that it's going to be a while until Nebraska lands one of those defensive linemen. It's just a weird year where there's a handful of them left on the board for Nebraska, but none of them seem to really be in a hurry. And then with the 2022 class, I think there's still some good regional players like Caden Crawford, the linebacker, down in Kansas. You have another linebacker, Gavin Myers, also in Kansas. The tight end out at Bellevue West, Caden Helms, I think is a guy that Nebraska continues to look at, and hopefully, they can make some good headway with him. I think the 2022 will be good, and it could be another year in which it's kind of led by regional talent.
Give me a bold prediction for Saturday with Nebraska and Ohio State.
Oh, man, a bold prediction would be that Adrian Martinez does not have a turnover in this football game. I'm not sure that he's done that in his career at Nebraska, so that's why it would be bold. But that is the best key to Nebraska really being able to move the ball consistently against Ohio State outside of the front game. But I think he rises to the occasion and does not have a turnover in this game this weekend. Okay,
Greg says no turnovers, and
that would be huge.
That'd be great. I mean, think about 18. Is this thing, last thought here, is this closer to a 2018, and I'm not saying a 5-point difference where Ohio State steals a win or finds a way to win? I don't think it's 2019 either. Are you kind of in that gray area between one possession and curb stomp? I mean, is that how you think Saturday goes?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the gray area. I don't think it's going to be like last year where, like, Chase Young just wreaks complete havoc and they can't, force Ohio State to punt. But I also don't think that Ohio State will sleepwalk either. I do think that it'll be somewhere in the middle. It's going to be really tough for Nebraska. But I think at least for the first half, they're going to show well in that game on Saturday.
Greg Smith and him and Jay Moore, check out their podcast. It's dropping. Is it already out or is that tomorrow?
Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
There we have it. Give us the title one more time.
The Straight Up Breakdown podcast with myself and Jay Foreman. We're having a blast recording that thing.
Yeah, you guys are both awesome. Straight Up Breakdown, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Hail Varsity. Awesome platform. Greg, we'll talk later this week. Thank you for jumping on, man.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy. There he is, Greg Smith. HailVarsity.com and magazine at Greg Smith HV. We'll hit some NFL, more Nebraska thoughts here, too.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
A few more thoughts here from Scott Frost and Adrian Martinez. AD Gene Smith from Ohio State says the Big Ten will not fine coaches who forget to raise their mask. Gene said each school will have a human reminder on staff, kind of like the get back coach. The old special teams or strength and conditioning guy that is
like holding the belt
awkwardly close to the head coach. Back in the day, I remember watching Coach Osborne on the sideline, and they had the headsets. Now they're kind of a wireless thing, right? Where you've got that pack on the side of your belt. Well, back in the day, you had to have some dude you plugged the cord into, and T.O.'s running down the sideline to give some instruction on an onside kick in the 84 Orange Bowl. And he about gets strangled, and he's dragging somebody with him because the cord's there. And how times have changed, but good on the Big Ten for not fining. I mean, I would think they'd, the first time somebody doesn't raise their mask up, I would anticipate the Big Ten just canceling the season.
Well, I'm still big on those face shields, the ones that Andy Reid used.
Yeah.
I said that weeks ago, why didn't all the NFL coaches start using those? And now all the NFL coaches have started using those, so maybe it'll spread to the Big Ten too. Those seem to make the most sense.
Let's hear more from Frost here when it comes to opening up here with Ohio State. I know Ohio State's folks were on the Zoom call today, and they're like, all right, what do you think here? Ohio State, Nebraska out of the gate. Is that by mistake?
No, I don't think it was a coincidence. But we're grateful to Ohio State. it's strange where you find allies in certain things, and I think we had an ally in Ohio State to try to get the season played. I don't think it would have got done without Dr. Borchers there, without Ryan Day continuing to push it, Gene Smith continuing to push it. We certainly fought for it too. We fought because we thought it was the right thing to do, to have football. Our kids wanted to play. We thought we could do it in a safe manner. We weren't satisfied with the decision to not play, and kept trying to find opportunities to find a way to get it done. And we're grateful to Ohio State for having done the same thing.
This is Adrian's take on opening up with the Buckeyes, and we'll see what Adrian looks like. What form is he in, freshman year or sophomore year?
I'm excited getting to play Ohio State week 1. I know our guys are excited. Our coaches, this program, we fought to play. So we're excited to play. Is what it is as far as the schedule dealt. I think we're excited and we're prepared.
So more from Frost here when it comes to football and the challenges with, and I think Coach McBride nailed it with, Ohio State's got new personnel, and you've got one starter back on that defensive line, one starter back in that secondary. And as good as they are, okay, with their talent level, they've had the same amount of you've gotten hosed development time, okay? Chase Young didn't start as a true freshman, okay? Okuda didn't start as a true freshman. They needed a year to be great, and then they saw some spot time as sophomores, and then obviously their junior seasons, they blew up. They were great. But they were part of the defense that Nebraska had really good success against in 2018. There is a reality in college football, and you've seen it with Alabama. You really haven't seen it with Clemson this year, where you're not in midseason form. So Nebraska needs to be locked in and be further ahead of schedule, even though it is a game one. And really lean on guys that have started and played well. That's Adrian not making mistakes. That's Mills and your run game kind of dictating things, and then find your tight ends. Just do what you want to do offensively and be confident and just go play aggressive defensively, right? I mean, just go bring the house. And if you miss a tackle and the quarterback scrambles for 48, not cool, but it's going to happen. So just make it a shootout. I know that makes defensive fans cringe. John's with us on Hail Varsity. John, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, some of us old-timers think that we're going to have probably 50 to 60 points put on the board by Ohio State. We don't know how close Nebraska will be, but we're sure hoping that it's close.
Yeah, there's going to be there's a difference in 60 other than, oh my God, that's a lot of points on the road to go outscore. But if you remember some trips to Columbus, this goes back to Taylor Martinez, but Nebraska gave up 63 in 2012, and it was kind of the quarterback run game that derailed them. Nebraska put up almost 40 points that night in Columbus. They scored enough to win. It was the defense. And then there's the Tommy Armstrong near-death game where they got beat 62-3, and they didn't want to be there. This is 2016.
Be careful. I don't want to run over you. My wife's coming up right now.
Your what?
What? I was talking to the neighbor kid. I was in the driveway.
Great. Okay.
I was telling them not to go out, not to take his skateboard down the driveway. My wife's coming in.
Gotcha. No, that's wonderful. Yeah. That's public safety there, John.
Yeah.
60-some points is not a good thing. You don't win that. But 60 doesn't always look the same. It can be a shootout or it can be a domination.
Well, I think it's going to be a close game.
Define close.
Is on his game. I really do. But if he's not on his game and we have to go to the other quarterback, it could be that 26-point, against us. But I think Ohio, the way the other teams, I think Ohio was rated 6th last week or 7th. I'm not sure. And Penn State was 7th or 8th. they're going to have to put the points on the board because the other schools are doing that.
Right. It's a beauty contest a little bit, even in the COVID-shortened 2020 season. John, enjoy the game Saturday, but thanks for listening.
I will. Take care. Bye-bye.
See ya. There he is. All you're doing is out skateboarding as the neighbor kid in 40-degree weather. And John's like, dude, get out of my driveway. My wife's on the way in.
I'm trying to listen to Hail Varsity Radio right now, man.
Yeah, well, good for him.
Making a racket.
Run over that damn skateboard. All right, let's take caller 5 right now. Our friends at Jet Splash, 84th and Highway 2. They've got a fundraiser going on there with their spooky tunnel. Check that out. But we want to give caller 5 a chance to win a gift card to Jet Splash for a free car wash. So we'll take caller 5 right now, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Caller 5 right now.
Let me just say, I have one of those Jet Splash memberships for my car.
Uh-huh.
Beautiful. I love going through Jet Splash. There's nothing better than a clean car.
No, it's awesome. I can't wash my car because I just got it back from the shop for about 90 days. But caller 5, get in, 800-825-5865 or 466-3776 to get in. Caller 5 gets you a Jet Splash certificate, and that is really cool. Excited about that. We'll have a Jet Splash certificate each day this week to give you a chance to win. Caller 5 at 466-3776, 800-825-5865. We'll wind down a Monday next on Hail Varsity Radio.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Good stuff from Kevin. He was caller 5 for the Jet Splash Haunted Tunnel gift certificate, $25 card. We'll get that emailed out and get that figured out. So thank you for tuning in. More chances for you to get that $25 gift card to Jet Splash each day this week. We are in the rail yard on Saturday, weekend edition, on-site live ahead of Nebraska, Ohio State before the watch party. Friday, we were at Kincaidor Brewing down in the Haymarket, just to the south of the rail yard. So Roadshow Friday. Our friends at Kincaidor, the Hail Ale has gone over very well.
Yeah, I got a 6-pack of the Hail Ale this weekend. Good
yeah,
stuff.
I got a 6er and I gave it to my mother, and then my brother ripped it off and took it home back to Gretna.
Oh.
But that was so much fun at Wilderness on Friday. Great time. And good beer and fun had by all.
I was just glad that we didn't have Bill Dolman in whatever abyss of phone coverage that we had last time you were at Wilderness.
No, Dolman was probably on the 8th green. He snuck back into Lincoln. Knew the weather was going to be good.
Nice.
Perfect. So we are excited because there's a lot of Roadshow Fridays coming up. We're at Kincaidor this Friday, Kincaidor Brewing. And the good folks out of Western Nebraska, they are just truly good folks, and their beer's been outstanding, and they have no doubt partnered with us at Hail Varsity. It's really, really cool, and so we're there this Friday, and then a week from this Friday we're out at Piedmontese. They're phenomenal. They are amazing Nebraskans, and we are going to be at kind of their retail center where you can get steaks and chops and beer and all that good stuff. The 30th of October, and then we're back to Wilderness ahead of Northwestern.
Wow, that's loaded up, isn't it?
Yeah. So we got a good scroll of road shows here as we get into November and December.
See, I got to get back on the positive side of the steak and a beer bet. So when you're out at Piedmontese, you can just pick it up there. Like that's the way we got to do it.
Well, right.
We're running out of time.
Here's the problem. You're going to have to quit, double or nothing. You're just going to keep chasing it. And how about Levante David? I mean, he's incredible.
Chasing it, yeah, he's all over the field.
He has been incredible, and everyone around here knows how good he is. but the way he just took over and made splash plays. And then, Sue can absolutely get in that sixth gear when he wants to. And him and Rogers were jawing at each other. And the big man got a little ticked off and then got pretty fiery. And then he just bench pressed poor Aaron Rodgers. There was no shot of that. I mean, it went from 10-0 to this thing's freaking over. And you didn't really have any Mike Evans, I mean, he was not locked in. It was Godwin in the running game, and Gronk got loose, which was really cool. I want to remind you about buckling up. Your friends at the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety. 70% of people in fatal crashes in Nebraska not wearing their seatbelt. If used properly, the seatbelt can reduce risk of injury and fatal injury by 60%. Your best defense, buckling up. Brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety. Back at you tomorrow. More Ohio State, Nebraska. Thanks for listening.